for me to connect to DB. I would need a connection to the database. So I can say DB connection, or let's just say many a time we call it as a JDBC connection, JDBC connections. Same way for HANA to perform any sort of database transactions, it would need this RAQ. Now, as we are having a fixed values over here, we won't need a RAQ, so it would be unused. So in your code, whatever variables are something that you are not using, you would find it in a gray mode. Once you start using that, you would find that that variable is getting converted to something. Okay. Now, this particular debugger we are in, and let's just say I want to pass some sort of fixed values from here. So for example, I do have ID, name, and employee ID. So I'll just say I want a ID whose value is EMP01, for example. Name, I want to generate it as a now. If you just execute this, this would get executed the mode it was earlier into. Let me just stop and rerun this. Okay, so in case you, after doing any sort of change, are understanding it in debugging, and now you want to go in the real one, you can again same way go over here. But now what we want to understand over here is fixed value we learned, how I can do that. Okay, the port, yeah, this is also one of the pain point whenever you are running whenever you are running two services. Okay, here in local execution, it would give you one dedicated port where your service could run. And that's why if your debugger has not stopped terminated correctly, it would give you this sort of error. Can you see it is saying EMP01, the data which I passed. But now I want to go one more step further. I want to have some sort of logic. I want to have some sort of logic in order for me to have, for example, I want a dedicated database table where I do have the data, but after having that particular data, I want to, after having that particular data, I want to, one second, this, what is happening? Okay, after having that particular data, I want to manipulate it in a way and prepare the data, which is a combination of this. So for example, I do have a department over here, and I want to write my logic to get the department over here with a string. Okay, let's just go one more step deeper. So this CDS persistent skip gives us the functionality that you can override the, or let's just say you have to write your own logic because it doesn't have anything beneath that. But in case you do have something, for example, I do have an entity over here like this, and here you do have a employee DB. Okay, and here you do have a ID generation automatically available out of the box, as we learned that I do have a CUID which would give me the ID and managed. But other than CUID and managed, I want a name which the employee would pass, or let's just say while registration and the user would pass. But I want to generate the front end ID of employee front end ID. This is something which would be visible to the employee, right? Because CUID is a 36 character key, but when I talk about anyone's employee ID, it can be 1234, it can be 5486, anything random. So I want to generate an employee ID, and that employee ID should get determined from the backend. So I can expect name to be passed, but while name is getting inserted, while a new entry is getting created onto the database, I want that I would be, or I should be able to generate this employee ID. So what I'll do is I'll just expose this first. TT employee as select from, okay, and I'll just say employee DB. And now this particular employee this is going via custom handler. That is something we know. But now this particular component, yeah, it does not have a HANA deployed, and that's why it would fail first. Okay, not an issue. Let's just regenerate this because it would need some sort of JS file right internally. Okay. Mostly perfect. So I feel, do we have a Cloud Foundry login? Feel we won't be. Now try connecting this. Try deploying this. Why it is still not getting this particular component? Some sort of certificate issue, it seems. This empty would have those both the modules, but currently we don't want to go with anywhere the deployment, so we should be fine. All we need is just connect a new runtime container, because last time as well it did happen with us that whenever I'm going with a loop execution, if it's a fresh earlier one, it was containing some sort of cache, and that was hampering the runtime execution. dev HDI shared. Yeah, this is the one we ideally connect to. Do we have that DB running? Because I suspect the DB module, the database that we just started, did it just got started? Yeah, that is the reason. It never got started, and that is why it is hampering us. So this particular DB should be in running mode for us to have anything on the database level working. I thought we clicked on the start, so it would have worked. I mean, while going with the revision, and I guess that just got missed. So this should be in a running mode. That's what we started, but it never got started. Okay, so now what we are going through is we'll just keep on monitoring till the time. Yeah, if you see it, just say update in progress. We would need this to be in running mode for us to actually proceed. But till now, what we are ultimately doing is we do have a scenario, or let's just say we are thinking of a hypothetical scenario where the employee DB, okay, would have all the data getting generated automatically because ID is getting generated out of the box. Name is something which user would be passing, but employee front end is something which the user won't be passing. I mean, whatever is the actual employee ID that would be visible to him. So we would need some sort of handler for this that would get triggered. Yeah, it's still the same. That's what it is happening. So for us to have that employee ID generated, what we would need is we would need something that gets triggered before an employee's entry gets posted onto the database, right? So I can say I can add an implementation to generate the employee ID before a DB entry. And how I can do that? I can say SRV before. And here I can say create. So the moment a create call is occurring onto the database, I can expect that this is the logic that would get executed before anything. Before anything gets executed, this before would get executed, and here we can manipulate the data however we want. So for example, I want the employee this to be executed, and I can say in the employee handler, for example, I want to have one more controller, one more function. So I can say module.exports dot generate emp id. So I can say hello emp handler dot generate emp id. Let's see what is the status. Yeah, now it seems to be in a running mode. So let's just stop this, go in the run configuration. Let's try our luck once again. And now I'll just say, once this disconnect, we'll just try connecting it once more. Okay, I'll just connect this. Yeah, now it works. So if you see, I guess that was the same issue in the earlier project as well. So ultimately, it was not run. The DB was not running. We expected we started that, but it never got started. Okay. Now, if I just say CDS watch, if I just go over here, now we should have a MTA, or let's just say over here. It is doing internally. Okay. Here we have some sort of a script. So the build is not building all. So yeah, this is something that we generated. Okay, 1 second. See if this works. And the scripts. Perfect. Now, one last time. It's very slow. We should get a button over here. Yeah. It's not. Why it is behaving abnormally today? Hmm. Do we have gen, and that there should be a DB, there should be a SRV, SRC, and there should be a file that got generated. Yeah, we do have both. Employee DB, yeah, we do have that. Why it is still failing? Okay, yeah, okay, one second. Let's see. I think one last step. There is no operation DB key impressions. What's happening to this? Creation of service key initial. Sorry guys, it is creating some sort of unwanted behavior. Yeah, now it should work. Yeah, now if you see, it's not getting any results, but it's not giving us the error because we don't have any data into the database. So what I just did is, as in the local mode, it was creating some sort of trouble because maybe the local instance of DB is something which is not getting connected. So in CAP model, we ideally have two kind of DB. One which is global, which is kind of running as a service on BTP, and one which is meant for the local testing. So I guess the local server has some issue. So I just added the container in the target and I just said CDS deployed. So how I write it as, sorry. I'll just close this. So how I wrote it as CDS deploy double dash to. Now we have to specify the database to which we want to deploy. So we are going to deploy it to HANA database. That's why I just wrote HANA. Many a time you would also find you can deploy it to some sort of SQLite. So currently we don't have it, but in case you do have SQLite, you can say SQLite, and then you can say the name of the file, for example, to SQLite, and you can say SQ, or let's just say db.db, anything. Let's just say SQLite.db. So it would generate a database file system. But here we do have a live server, so we are just deploying it to HANA server. So I guess in the local instance has some issue. That's why we just deployed that database. And now if you see, it is running. So we do have an employee detail. Now let's just go one more step forward. What we want is, so we do have two things on our agenda. Okay, so when I say get employee, it is executing it normally because we don't have anything in between. Okay, we don't have anything in between to intervene. So for example, if I just go into the service implementation, I'll just close this so it would be more readable. Here we do have a create. So we have not injected any call that would execute in between the read. We are just executing something after the create. Okay. Or like, sorry, before the create. So what I'll do is in the service implementation in the method, I'll just go in that particular method. And here I'll just say first whether it's getting executed. So I'll just say console log executed before create. Now I'll just try to run the create example. So I'll just try to create an entry. So I can say enter employee data. I can say post. Okay, let's just copy this whole thing. You would say we want a content type of application JSON. And as you know, in the data model, we have used multiple aspects. So ID would get generated automatically. Timestamp would be also added. Name is something that we are expecting that we would pass, no one else. Okay. So I'll just say, I want a name as a Sumit. Okay. So I would get a name as a Sumit, and that name is something that would be inserted into the database. But on top of that, I want one more thing to get added. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just stop this for now, and we would directly jump onto the debugger to see what all information we are getting and what all thing we can intervene. So the story is we do have a employee table. We do have a name that user is passing, but this is something that we want to generate. Okay, so I'll just say BT employee local. I guess this is a version that we are executing, and I'll just say start debugging. It would open it into the debugger mode. We would be into that. Now, compared to what we had seen into the debugger, what are the changes that we can expect? In the get call, in the read call, earlier employee local was not having anything into the data, but here we are passing few things, right? Here we are passing name and everything. So that is something that we can expect. So I'll just say post call. Now you are into the debugger mode. Now if you observe the REQ closely, it is having REQ. It is the create event for which it just got triggered. Here we do have a data. In the data, we do have few things. We do have a ID that got generated automatically because ID is something that is a CUID is generating. Now, what timestamp it would insert into the database depends on the when the entry is getting inserted into the database. Let's just say for now, you are holding the execution till 30 minutes, then it would not insert the old timestamp. What it would do is it would wait till the time that the entry is not getting inserted. So these are the two things that we are already getting, but we are not having anything for the employee external ID, but we want that to also to be inserted. So what we'll do is, if you want, yeah, one more thing here, these are your statements. So this is kind of execute. This is a step over. This you can think of F5678 in your normal ABAP debugger. If you want to restart, these you how you can restart, and these how you can stop the debugging. So I'll just stop this for now, but I am very clear, or let's just say we are here. Can I type something? It is not responding on that. So here, if you see in the watch level, I can say req.data. And here I do have that. It says req.data does have name and ID. Instead, if I want to add one more thing, that req.data dot this employee frontend ID should also have some sort of value. Okay, for example, I am saying currently for hard coded one that this employee frontend ID should be initialized to dummy, or let's just say employee ID EI underscore 01, for example. Okay, so the moment you say EI 01, you are in the before. you are in the before execution. So you are changing something. This data would also be part of the req.data, and going forward, this is something that you can expect to be part of your output, or I can say to be part of the database table when the entry gets inserted. So I'll just stop this for now. Okay, this is null. Okay, this is null. It means we are not having any sort of data available, at least till now. I'll just stop this. Just close this. Let's just CDS watch. Now, if you just go over here, try to get the entries which were earlier added. But that was not added. So fine. I'll just say send request now. And it just created an entry with EI01 this. And now if I just say get, if you see the entry that got persisted has a EI01. How? Because I intervened over there. I do have a control before an entry. Forget about an entry. Before an operation actually gets performed. Okay, you do have a control over there. Before an execution actually gets performed, you can manipulate however you want. In case, let's just say there are plenty of validations that you want to execute, saying if someone is trying to create something, but is he authorized to do that? Okay, and you want to write your logic to check the authorization, right? So whatever logic that you write in the before, and now let's just say you are saying that person is authorized and you are not changing anything, you are just allowing the execution to go through, so it would execute. But in case you are not happy, or let's just say in case you are not able to validate that the user is authorized one, and you want to raise an error instead, so you can raise the error then, and that would get considered, and the before execution before would stop the execution, and no further execution of on and after would get executed, and the entry won't get inserted. So before, you can think of a place where anything you want to initialize, or let's just say validate before it goes into the database. That is a place where before would come into picture. In case you are working on for example, a material, you are creating a good receipt. After creating a good receipt, you want that the material stock should also get updated. So in the after handler, you can write any activity where after an execution has been performed of create or update or anything, you want to update certain dependent tables. Then after that activity has been performed, after actual database update has been done by the standard handlers, you can write your code in the SRV after. Okay, so for example, I'm over here, and now I'll just go over here, and I'll just say I want to generate the employee front end ID. So this REQ is the one that we would be using for that. So what we would do is we would generate a transaction. As I mentioned earlier, we can have a transaction like a JDBC connection. If I want to execute, what I'll do is I'll just say constant tx equal to CDS dot transaction, and here you can pass the REQ, the request object. I can say read, and here, yeah, here you can say tx, the transaction, and you have to run it. You have to run the transaction that you can specify over here, and now you want to select the data. Now you want to select the data from a database. So how you can do that? You can write a select. Now here, select and everything has a specific syntax. It's not like select star from this. Here we do have a dot convention. Okay, so in case you want to connect to a table, you have to first connect to that table. So for example, I do have an employee DB table. You do have an employee DB table, and you want to figure out what all entries were there, because before inserting, you want to check, okay, employee 01, whether it's created. Yes. Then I want to create 02. So maximum plus one, that's what you want to create, for example. So you can determine the employee ID over here. by querying this particular table, employee DB. Okay, so what you will do is you would just say, I want to connect to the table. So first, there are 3 steps. Connect to DB. Okay, you can say const. What table you want to use? I can say this, and you can say cds.entities. And here you can pass the namespace. So what it would do is it would try to connect to this table. It would try to get the instance of this table. Like I want to call, write a select query on EKKO. I can directly write select from EKKO, but that is not the case over here. This CAP works in a mode of JDBC. You have to first connect to the table. You have to initialize the transaction. And now you are saying that if you see this employee DB is not being used. Okay. You are saying that I want to have a select call getting executed on this employee DB. So what you can do is you can say from. So the moment you write dot F, it would say from. And here you can specify the table. So you want to get everything from the database table. That's what you are writing. In case you want to select the columns, you can say dot columns. For example, you want to select the maximum of EMP front-end ID available till now. As max EID. Okay, so let's just say I would put a breakpoint over here and see step by step what is happening into the while execution. Okay, so I'll just go over here in the debug mode. So this is my debug. So the bug kind of thing that you can see over here is for debugging. I'll just start debugging over here. Okay, now so as the service is running, I'll just say send request. I'm in my before. Okay, now I want to just either if this step into is nothing but your F5 kind of in a web, like where you want to go inside anything. And here this step over is like its statement would get executed, but you are not going inside anything. So you are first connecting CDS entities. You are connecting to this. It just got connected. Now you are saying CDS.transaction REQ. So this TX would get initialized. So if I just go over here in the watch, I'll just say TX, okay, is undefined. If I just say step over this, so now TX is initialized. Ideally, earlier it used to be kind of auto refresh. Now it is not refreshing those. That's weird. That's weird. But yeah, if you see, it just initialize the HANA database. So I do have a TX which is connected to HANA database, which is having a request call OData request. So it is a type of a OData request. Okay. Now we want to call this method. So if you see, this TX is nothing but what you can think of it. So TX, whenever you are saying CDS.transaction, you can think of a singleton design pattern where you are calling a static method, passing a parameter, and it is giving you an instance of an object. So TX is an object. It is a database object. Okay. And now you want to call the method run. Okay. The moment you call the run method, it would connect to this database, query this information. But yeah, if you see, I'll just say step over F6. You can see LR read. Now, if I just add this information into my LR read, you can also put a cursor and see the details. That's also fine. but just to have a, if you see, we do have one information which say promise. Promise is pending. So Node.js is asynchronous language. When I say a asynchronous language, what is it? So for example, if I want to say this statement, I want to connect to this. So if let's just say connecting to a database is taking more amount of time, then it would keep on executing this in one thread, and the another thread would start executing this. The moment this is done, it would just go over here. Likewise, okay. So let's just say tx.run or many a command. If you check the standard documentation, you would find that okay, tx cds.transaction is a internal synchronous method. That the moment you execute that, till the time it's not executed fully, the control won't move to the next statement. But whenever you are saying tx.run, this is a asynchronous method. Okay, this is a asynchronous method, and when you are saying it's a asynchronous method, it would call this method, it would keep on executing, but it would just return the promise which says the execution of this is pending. It is getting executed somewhere into the memory. The moment it gets executed, you would get the control. But for me to generate the employee ID, I would need the detail LR read. I would need the detail of this, right? And if I want the detail of LR read, I have to wait. I have to wait till the time when this statement is not getting fully executed. Okay, so we have to wait till the time this statement gets fully executed, and for that we do have a statement called await. So when you are saying await, what it would do is, even though it is a asynchronous language, it won't go to the next statement till the time the tx.run is not succeeded. We should have some output, either success or fail or any data or anything. Okay, for us to execute the next statement, and that's why we are saying await. Wait at this statement till the time you are not getting any output. And for us to use the await statement in a Node.js, the function whichever you are specifying should be asynchronous. So I have to specify async. So in Node.js, you would find many a function which are asynchronous, because the internal component that you are using are asynchronous, and for an asynchronous function to use, you have to use await, and the moment you use await, so in this particular whole code, this is a synchronous one, this is synchronous, but this is asynchronous. Now as this is asynchronous, it would behave the synchronous way because the function is synchronous. I have not specified asynchronous earlier. If it behaves synchronously, but it does not have required time to get executed, so it would just say okay, I have call the respective party, they are getting the maximum of employee ID, but I would go to the next statement because you are saying that. But you are saying no, don't do that. Just wait for this statement to get executed. I'll make this function asynchronous. So you are saying asynchronous, it would wait over here till the time that gets executed. And if you write over here await and async, this LR read would be initialized by the time this next statements reach. Okay. So let's just restart the execution. Okay, and I'll just go over here and I'll just say again, send. Now I am over here. I'll just say execute this, connect to the database, initialize the transaction. I want a LR read. If you see, it just took some time. Yeah. Now I'll just check LR read. Just add, okay, let me just clear out all the unnecessary variable. Can you see? I got an LR read, which is having one column maximum EID. That's what I name it as, right? In the columns, which is saying EI_01. Okay, so I am getting a value called EI underscore 01. Now it's all string manipulation. You can split it by underscore, and then you can say whatever right side component that you are getting, add it with a 1. And then you can assign it to employee ID, whatever you are assigning it over here, that would become your new employee ID. And now if you visualize what it is, this is nothing but a array. It is having a square bracket whose 0th component, the very first component of it, is having max ID as a column, and it is having the value EI01. So this is an array of an object. In case you want more columns, let's just say for your execution or for your logic, you want select dot from columns and you want to specify 5 more column, you can say comma in single inverted comma name of the column, comma in single inverted comma another name of the column. That's how we write. And in case you don't specify dot columns over here, you are just saying select dot from, it would get you all the data. In case you want to specify the where clause, the same, it goes the same way. You can say dot where. So each and every component is now converted to a dot. You have to specify dot extension, and it would be converted into a real SQL query internally by the internal standard, the TX, the at the rate SAP CDS component is something that would be working for that. Are we all clear till now? We got some trouble earlier just because we did not have the database connected and few things. But now we are good, and I think we are with the custom handler. So are we all good till now, till the time we have went through?
Yeah, Sumit, but we need to practice so some little
For
bit.
sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, these are the things which are coming. I mean, from nowhere. I mean, it's not a bad for sure. It's totally Node.js